Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of Macabre Matinee with Craig and Sean. As usual, I am Craig Lance.
And I'm Sean, bearded Capolitan.
And this week we have a special episode for you for a couple of reasons. The main reason is we have a guest on board, and you may recognize his voice here in a second from a few other podcasts he has done and is currently working on. So why don't you tell our listeners who you are and where they can find you, good sir?
Hey everybody, it's Jerry, or Jerry Robotingu Smith, as you might know me from another project that I work on with Sean. Man,
what is
guys,
that project, sir?
It's the Yokai Delinquents podcast. So it's you guys are like real professional over here with this. You say the episode number ahead of time and everything. I think Sean and I are just like so far ahead right now. We're like, what fucking number episode are we on? Who the fuck knows?
I don't know. There's no theme. At least like up until this episode, we had the Friday the 13th numbers to remind us what number up we're on. Now we're all
right.
Now it's all fun.
Yeah,
right.
Now you screwed us all up, Jerry.
That's perfect.
So the reason we have Jerry aboard this week, other than he is just our buddy and we really like hanging out with him, is because we are going to talk about a movie that just came out. That's right. We're taking a break from Friday the 13th, as they just told you.
What?
And we're going to talk about The Empty Man. And Jerry, who is a comic book enthusiast, as Sean and I are. And I don't know, Jerry, did you read any of this series?
So
I feel like you read the first couple of issues because we talked about it.
Yeah, so being like a big Cullen Bunn fan, I'm a little ashamed to say that I actually only read like the first 2 issues. It was just kind of like in that period where he was dropping like a new book like once a month. Yeah. So it's kind of like, you got to pick and choose what you're jumping on.
He is a
which,
busy
like,
man.
The subject material of Empty Man seemed really interesting, and like the art and just grotesqueness of it was like really great. Yeah, but it's one that I didn't stick with, but after watching this movie, it really makes me want to go and pick up the trade paperback for it now.
Yeah, and so you don't have to have seen or read the comics to see this movie. It is a self-contained story that happens within that universe, and it is not dependent upon the comics, or the comics are not dependent upon this. They just happen within the same universe.
Yeah, because I went in blind. I didn't even know until y'all brought it up. A, I hadn't heard of the movie, but B, I definitely didn't hear about the comic book.
Yeah, so I guess this is where we need to go ahead and give our obligatory spoiler warning.
Yes.
Especially this week, because as we stated, this is a new movie. It's only been out a couple of weeks. So if you don't want to be spoiled, this is where you hit the pause button. You go watch the movie, and then you come back and finish listening to us, because of course, you want to know what we have to say about this movie.
Absolutely, you do.
The movie we're going to talk about, as previously stated, is The Empty Man. It was released in 2021. It was written and directed by David Pryor, based on a comic book series written by Cullen Bunn and drawn by Vanessa Del Rey. It is starring James Badgedale as James, who you might recognize from World War Z, Iron Man 3, The Departed, or any number of other movies. Marin Ireland is Nora, who will also be playing Nora in Why the Last Man Standing.
Ooh.
And yeah, right. And she was also in The Umbrella Academy as Sissy. And then Sasha Frolova is Amanda. And then those are the 3 main characters, but I am going to give you one more because you're going to recognize him. And that's the Empty Man cult leader, who is Stephen Root, who you might know as the stapler guy from Office Space.
Oh, yeah. Always glad to see him pop up in movies. He is a fantastic character actor.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, every time I see him, I think of him from Office Space. But, man, he's really good, and he's in a lot of these kinds of movies, too. So.
Oh, yeah.
So this movie starts in Ura Valley, Bhutan in 1995. Day 1. I don't know why the days are important, but there's 2-3 day stories in this thing. So day 1, 4 hikers make their way to the top of a mountain when the threat of a storm moves in. As they discuss heading back down the mountain, one of them, Paul, is drawn towards a sound. As he wanders from the group, he falls into a crevice. When they find him, he is catatonic in front of a skeleton of what can only be described as a demon. They attempt to carry him down the mountain, but quickly tire, and just as they are about stumped, they find a cabin to shelter themselves from in the storm. Day 2, they awaken to a blizzard with Paul still in a catatonic state. They can't get down the mountain and are trapped for another day. That night, we get a flash of a scene of Paul whispering to one of the women while she sleeps. Day 3, they awaken to Paul and his clothes are missing. Paul and his clothes missing. They easily track him in the snow where they find him sitting in front of a bridge playing a bone flute. That's correct, a bone flute. And
Yes,
when they confront him, the woman that Paul whispered to removes a knife and kills the other 2 before jumping off the side of the cliff herself, leaving Paul playing his bone flute in front of the bridge. And finally, after 20 minutes, we get to the opening credits.
Yeah, that was a hell of an opening.
It was. Usually, these openings have about, 3 or 4 minutes. The people get killed real quick and you go on. But It's a pretty tense opening and has some stuff that plays later into the movie.
Right.
So after the opening credits, we find ourselves in Webster Mills, Missouri in 2018, and we meet up with the ex-cop, James, who now owns a tactical supply company and is a private investigator, and who grew up in San Francisco. And we know that because they tell you that like 3 times throughout the movie, so it must be really important.
He grew up. Did you know he grew up in San Francisco?
Yes, he grew up in San Francisco. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now. I was about to say that was.
Yeah.
I was going to say we lost him again.
Yeah. We are told. I'm sorry. I'm going to cut and fix that as well.
Yeah, no worries.
James gets home that evening to find Amanda, the daughter of his next door neighbor, sitting on a bench by his pool in the backyard. He goes out and talks to her, and she rumbles off some cultish shit sounding really insane about nothing being real and that nothing really matters. The next morning, well, he has a nightmare that night. We kind of start piecing together that his wife and son died. He wakes up that morning and takes some medicine, and we get a flash that says day 1. Nora, Amanda's mother and the once object of James's affection, awakens to find Amanda missing and a note in blood written on the mirror of her bathroom. The empty man made me do it. James decides to help Nora find Amanda and begins investigating her disappearance. He starts with her friends, but can only find one of them. The subject of the empty man comes up during his conversation with her, and she explains that there is a kid's urban legend going around that if you find a bottle on a bridge and you blow into it while thinking of the empty man, he will come to you. And for some stupid reason that only teenagers can figure out, they perform that ritual along with 5 other friends. Yeah, because kids are gonna kid. So James goes to the bridge to start investigating there, and he finds the bottle. And so what's he do? He blows into the damn bottle because why not?
Naturally.
And after some more investigating, he finds the other 5 kids hanging from the underside of the bridge with the empty man made us do it note written in, I think, spray paint, but either way, maybe blood, I don't know. That evening, Delara, Amanda's friend that he had spoken to earlier, goes into a spa. The empty man appears to her and stabs her repeatedly in the face with scissors/shears. And when the angle of the shot changes, Delara is doing it to herself, apparently.
Pretty brutal.
Then, it was pretty brutal. Right. And then the empty man takes her blood and writes the empty man note himself there for her. James ends up at the at the police station, where the detective in charge of the case tells him that these are actually going on all over the country, and it seems to be like some sort of communicable virus. So that night, creepy stuff happens to James because he blew in the bottle. Day 2, he investigates the Pontifex Institute, and he had found the name the Pontifex Institute in Amanda's diary.
Yeah.
And when he gets there, they are conveniently about to have a seminar because, perfect timing, plot reasons.
Of course.
And the seminar is more of the cultish gibberish that Amanda gave him earlier. And it is ended by saying that the message comes directly from the empty man. James begins wandering around the Institute looking for clues, where he is eventually found and removed from the building. He finds a kid who he had seen inside, and the kid tells him that Amanda is out in the country at Elsewhere camp. James travels to Camp Elsewhere, where he finds it empty. After looking around, he finds files on Amanda and her friends and an empty file on himself. As night comes, he sees the cultist campers chanting and marching around a bonfire. And as the bonfire dies, the cultists begin chasing him in what is maybe kind of the coolest scene in the movie.
It was kind of awesome.
It's hella unsettling. And it was just completely perfect.
He escapes and goes to Nora's house, and he explains to her that Amanda is probably in a cult and that he needs to hide Nora until he can get Amanda out. More weird shit happens that night because, again, blowing in the bottle and dealing with weird god cultist people. Day 3, James begins following the kid that had set him up the day before. The kid gathers up some other kids, and when I say kid, they're not really kids. They're, maybe young 20s, late teens.
Right.
And they head to a hospital. They go to the ICU, and James follows them in just in time to see them begin bowing to a man who is in a coma. Later, James captures the kid, who tells him that the man is a transmitter, and that he transmits and they receive.
Yeah.
So James ends up back at the hospital after a little bit more investigating, and he runs into a nurse who is obviously one of the cultists and gives him way too much information. He enters the room to find Amanda shaving the man in the coma. And I'm going to kind of drop it off there. We may get into the rest of it as we talk.
Yeah.
But just leaving a little bit there because this is where, from that point on, it kind of explains all the weird shit that's been happening.
Right.
So, yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on this movie? Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Hate it?
Okay. Here's the thing. And don't get me wrong, cult mindfuck movies like these are a tricky business. I think it had good tension, creepy moments, but there are a lot of plot holes to pick through, in my mind. Unless I missed something, and like our discussion might reveal, as you know, when we talk about movies, our opinions can change. But like, I had a great setup, and I think the ending fell short.
Okay, we'll get back to the plot holes here in a minute and try and unpack some of those.
Right.
Jerry, what were your thoughts?
So Steph and I watched this together. We were just kind of like looking for something, and I saw Colin Bunn post it. I thought it was a pretty interesting concept. Just the fact that, like, they had this like sort of myth type thing, like urban legend that was kind of like coming true, sort of.
Right.
I really kind of like the idea of that, and I was trying to look up the name of what they called it, but for some reason I'm drawing a blank right now. And it's essentially like one of those those myths that if you like believe it or not, it kind of like becomes a reality or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really liked sort of seeing that, you know, in action and take effect. In all, like the main character was kind of interesting, and you know, it was a very like, oh, this is his backstory. Okay, get it. I did really like the designs for some of the stuff they did, like the fucking skeleton.
Yeah, the
When they
skeleton was
first,
awesome.
yeah, when they first found the guy, and he also has a hallucination. I think about it later on, but
Right.
like it's this like really like crazy ornate skeleton with like multiple arms and stuff, and it's like reaching around like grabbing someone. I thought that was really cool. All in all, I thought it was a pretty cool movie. I don't know how soon like I would go back to it or anything like that. I don't know, like because of how the ending is. I don't know how much rewatchability it has. You know.
Yeah.
But so like you said, it's not completely tied into the comics, right? Like it's sort of the same universe but a different story.
That is 100% correct. It's a completely different story than the comic. It's in the same universe. One thing that the comic did that I think Sean's maybe missing out on a little bit, and may come to one of the plot holes a little bit,
Okay.
is the comic did much better about making you believe that this was a virus that and that
Yeah.
people became kind of cultist based on this virus, because the virus would infect people and they would start to hear people whispering to them,
Yeah.
and then when they would hear that whispering, they would kind of go insane and start killing either other people in their house or themselves. They would like start mutilating themselves.
Okay. Yes, that does. One of the big problems I had was really, and it was the best, like most graphic and best kill of the movie was the sauna kill. It just
Right.
like with everything we revealed without having to get into necessarily with the spoilers, that just didn't make a lot of sense. But the idea of like a virus
Right.
making her do that, because like you said, like at first it looks like, okay, we're dealing with a supernatural killer, like in like real world, like we all grew up hearing about the legend of Bloody Mary kind of a thing, which is what
Right.
which made me think of it, and I was all on board for that. And then it showed her holding herself and stabbing in the face, and okay, like okay, well maybe there's some kind of control, but we didn't really get back to that in this movie.
So what the movie didn't do very well, as a person that read the comic,
Right.
and I like the movie fine, but what it didn't do very well as somebody that read the comic is it doesn't really combine the virus and the supernatural effect as well as the comic did,
Okay.
because
Yeah,
it is absolutely both of those things in the comic.
right.
And now with the world the way it is right now and the pandemic going around, they may have wanted to stay away from the virus.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And so they just give you a couple of kind of throwaway lines in the movie where they talk about it being communicable and that it's transmitted from other people's thoughts,
Right.
which it's not so much. It's more of a disease you captured just like any other. But when you get it, you're infected by the empty man, which is a supernatural being that causes you to kill yourself.
Right.
So, or to mutilate others.
Yeah, and where I think
So,
a lot of that, sorry, jump in a little bit, where it got lost in that when it became more about the cult in the movie. We kind of lost that suddenly became more of the focus as far like we, unless I'm like forgetting, we didn't get another real like a supernatural killing afterwards.
no.
Once it delved
So,
more into that, it kind of lost focus on that, and it kind of where with some creepy moments still, which is why I said I give the high credit to this movie is the creepiness of it.
right. So, in the comics, the cults don't really come to play a part until the second volume, which he came back and did like 3 years later. So it's like it stuck more to the virus aspect of it in the comic with some supernatural killing
Right.
in there. but you
Right.
don't get into the cultist part until volume 2. But volume 2 is but volume 2 is much more gory, so it's kind of a trade-off.
Right,
Yeah,
Jared?
and like that was kind of like one of the things that they should have done. And now that you mentioned it, because I kind of like forgot where that first issue really picked up. And yeah, they were thinking that it was like a virus that was making people be violent or kill each other or something like that.
That's right.
But yeah, I think if we would have got a few more of those like random things of like victims seeing the empty man come at them and kill them in a brutal way, and then like find out
Right.
that like they're doing it.
Yeah.
I think that definitely would have like made it better like in general of horror. Also, the thing that I was trying to think of was a tulpa. So
Yeah.
it's a concept in mysticism, a paranormal being which is created through spiritual mental powers, which is interesting because it's like it's a Tibetan lore type thing, and the
Right.
story started off in Tibet with them doing backpacking and
Well,
everything.
and later she calls him her Tubo, something like that, which sounds very familiar to what you're saying.
Right.
Well,
So,
in like also whenever he's first investigating, I think he's going through something in her room and he finds a note, and on the back of it it actually says tulpa, which
yes.
started getting me thinking about it, and like I've heard that somewhere before. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of cool where they went with it, and I thought that whole like creature aspect of it is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are some absolutely great parts of this movie, though. The beginning of it's super creepy. Like the first opening sequence that I blew through pretty quick is super creepy.
Yeah, that like here's my thing. I think and don't get wrong, I'm not trying to like I enjoyed the movie overall, but
Right.
like I thought we had a much better movie until it delved into the cult. Like
Yes.
from that opening when it was just a boogeyman,
Yep.
from the, as my note said, the Nope Bridge, because that was this chain link fencing. Like no, hell
Yeah.
no. To
Yeah.
and if we learned anything from Blair Witch Project, when you go into a room and you see one of your friends is sitting staring at a wall or something, you walk the fuck
Yeah.
away.
Especially when the friend tells you, if you touch me, you'll die.
Right. Like from that to like the well shot and well creepy bridge scene of the teens calling the empty man. Like it just set up, and there was some good stuff with the cult, as we mentioned, like the fire dance
Yeah.
to just them suddenly staring at him. And the slow, like him move, they move. I'm like,
Yeah.
fuck no, that was creepy
Yeah.
as
So,
shit.
Yeah,
So I
and
think,
it was the same whenever they first did the thing on the bridge, and there
Yeah.
was somebody that they couldn't see on the other end of the bridge that made a step every time they made a step, and then you heard those loud like running, and they were like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, let's get the fuck out of here."
so I feel like, kind of like Sean did, that if they had made this movie and left the cult in it, but not made them the bad guy,
Right.
and left it as a supernatural being doing killing that maybe this cult just worshipped,
Right.
I think that would have been fine.
Yeah, it's just we seem to have lost, for me at least, it felt like it kind of lost focus on the supernatural being and more into like a cult brainwashing kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to me, it felt disjointed a little bit. But like I said, still had some good stuff. Like I said, the cult fire of him like staring up and seeing the stars go fucking crazy. No shit like that was
Yeah.
good. The fucking teddy bear got me.
No.
I was like, oh, fuck
Right?
no, that thing moved. It moved. I'm done. And like the videotapes, like there was. I don't want to. I'm not going to go so far as to say like we had two different movies in this, but like we almost, you know what I mean? It kind of felt at times like we fell into a second movie. And
The everything from when he ends up back at the hospital and finds Amanda in there, from that point on, does feel like a completely different movie.
Right.
And it's it doesn't fall apart there. It's not that the ending's bad. It just changes tone pretty damn quickly.
Right. And
I think that's the bigger issue. No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Like from that killer opening to the the up to half or before the last quarter of the movie, you got me fully invested in this supernatural being and how they got to stop it. And then we turned into an interesting cult thing, but it kind of left me with Demon Man blue balls of just like, okay, but this was like I didn't get. I know a metaphor of the year already, but like it just kind of like I didn't. It didn't give me when we got to the ending and explained things,
Right.
which was a mind fuck ending and well done, but not what we started with. You know what I mean? Like it could have, like I would have rather gotten some weird twist that still involved that more so than the cult.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's the only downfall. I mean, it's well shot, beautifully shot. Like I mean, there's some real tension throughout, which still give it the score I gave. A lot of it came from that alone. Good cast, and like I said, but like disjointed story.
The score, not your rating of it, but the musical score in this movie had a lot to do with that. It had some deep, like, trombone sounds going on through the movie, and it did a lot to build tension. Just when he's driving to the camp, and the music, he's just driving, and it's creepy as fuck,
right?
And that's 100% due to the score in the movie.
Yeah, music is. I mean, like reviewers and real hardcore horror fans acknowledge it, but like I think a lot of people are just your average moviegoers, even if they really like horror, just you don't really hear people talk about the score, how effective it is, and this one definitely used it to a good use of it. That's the word.
Yeah. I don't think it's quite as creepy if you take the score out of this movie.
Right.
And I found times where I would almost compare this movie to, on a level of creepiness, to the first time I saw The Ring.
Oh, yeah.
Just kind of the whole, you did something, now in 3 days something else is going to happen, and every day shit's getting worse in that 3 days.
No, yeah,
so,
I didn't think about that, but yeah, with the time frame thing. Was definitely in there.
The music, the camera angles they use, and just they didn't show the actual Empty Man a lot, but when they showed him, it was done very, very well and used very well.
Right. Yeah, like Jerry, as far as like the tension and stuff, like I mean, I know you've watched a lot of horror movies with me. I don't know how big of a horror buff guy you really are. Like, did it give you any like other kind of like vibes you would compare it to kind of give listeners an idea?
So I'm like kind of more along the lines of like modern horror as it is anyway.
Right.
So I always kind of like go more towards like the supernatural type stuff I really enjoy. So I don't know, the biggest thing that I would try to compare it to, but would kind of fall short probably, is some of the later movies that they've done. Oh man, I'm forgetting the name of them.
Conjuring, that
yeah,
sort of
like
thing.
Conjuring, yeah.
Okay.
And like a scene that I don't think you guys have mentioned yet, because like they have this whole motif for this like the rules for the Empty Man, and it's like the first day you hear him, the second day you see him, and then the third day he comes for you or whatever.
Right.
So we're sort of following those rules with the main character here, and of course he starts hearing things, but whenever he starts seeing things, like it gets a little creepy, right? Because a good, like something good that I guess used in horror movies a lot is a long dark hallway, and he has one of those from his bedroom to his front door. Yeah. So whenever there are sounds happening around that area, and like he opens up the door like the first time, and then he just goes and finds that his door is open, and then the second time it's like something's fucking running for him, like that was a pretty good genuine spook right there. Like it definitely made me jump and creeped me out a bit. Yeah. And then I love his reaction whenever he's at the camp and he's like doing his snooping and everything, and then gets to the campfire and starts to get a little bit closer to check it out, and then they all stop and turn around, and as he takes steps back, they start taking steps forward. and then he just basically says out loud, "Nope."
Yeah,
and then just takes off running, and then they all run after him, and I'm like, same, like absolutely the same. Like I don't know that I would have gotten that close to the campfire.
Well, and then as he's escaping and he's driving away, he said, "What the hell was that?" Or something like that. You know, what the hell just happened to me? Which would have been all of our responses. You know,
and that is what I really liked about our lead. He felt very human. He wasn't the hero type. You know, he was being the ex-cop. You know, he wasn't afraid to get in some dirt, but like his reactions and just the way he was written, like I said, it was really well done to make him feel like this reaction. The way he handled situations was very human, very everyman who has like a little bit of like a rougher background, like in his cop days, obviously. So like he carried the film very well, but. It's funny you brought up the hallway scene, and I'm not trying to keep harping on what lost me, but I almost was like, by the time we got to those kind of scenes, and he had already that was after like his running with the cult. You know what? I didn't even think about it being the supernatural empty man. I thought it was a cult members fucking with him. You know what I mean? I realized I just remembered that. I realized like, wow, at that point, I assumed it was a cult. I forgot about all the supernatural shit.
You know where they lost me on that hallway scene is when he stood up and grabbed the baseball bat and said, "I grew up in San Francisco, motherfucker."
Look, man. In San Francisco, you got to put that bat to heads occasionally.
Craig has obviously never been to San Francisco.
I don't believe
I have been to San Francisco quite a few times, actually.
What if the whole joke there is just, San Francisco is known for its, baseball games and its,
that didn't actually happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But there is
the reason he kept bringing up the San Francisco thing is because of the hippies in San Francisco, and he equated the cults to being hippies.
And there is also like I said, I kind of don't want to get into it because like I feel like if someone's watching this now, I don't really want to get into the ending, but him repeatedly mentioning that does factor in to the ending and the crazy shit that's in there. So like
in the opening scene, the opening sequence plays into the ending as well.
Right.
But
despite that, like I said, I remember by the end, it got me. I was like, whoa, okay, that's what's going on. But yeah, I think that like Jerry reminded me about that hallway scene. Yeah, by that point, and I was paying attention. I was watching. Admittedly, sometimes you watch a movie, you're kind of doing other stuff too. But no, I sat down because I knew we were, I'd never seen this before. So like it was a full viewing. And yeah, by the time we got to that point, I wasn't even thinking about a supernatural entity. It was like, this is just a cult fucking with people, killing people.
Right.
Well, it was a little bit because the teddy bear was out front.
Right.
So I feel like it was probably both happening at that time.
Right. I did love what the cult though was. My wife Vanetta called like for a second thought it was him, so I just called him Michael Shannon Jr. The dude who was talking to him and got him to go out to the camp when he gets back, kidnaps him in a crowded street where everyone's looking at their phones and no one noticed that he maced, beat, and kidnapped the man on the street.
It was pretty great. Yeah, pretty good commentary on the life of the world right at the moment. That you could do that and no one would notice.
Right.
It is kind of funny though. Steph and I have this thing that whenever we see an actor that's in a movie and we're like, hey, they kind of look like this person or whatever, this actor, we kind of give them like a nickname that's like, off the beat of like them. So like the character at the beginning that, was hearing from the empty man, I was like, oh, that kind of looks like Aaron Paul. And I was trying to think of a name, and then I found out that his name, I think it was funny because I was trying to think of like a good knockoff Aaron Paul name, and his fucking real name is Aaron Poole. So like I was like, no fucking way, seriously.
But it's funny. I don't remember the actor's actual name, but so I'm still going to call him Michael Shannon Jr. But of course, I had to, after the movie, I looked him up. I thought he looked a little familiar, and it wasn't what I thought, anything, but like He was young Ned Stark in the flashbacks of Game of Thrones.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, when they showed him rescuing his sister, and we found out that whole thing. Yeah, he played young Ned Stark. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
I thought he was or looked like the kid, the babysitter kid in the second season of Stranger Things. The ex-boyfriend that became the babysitter.
Yeah, a little bit. Like, yeah, actually, you know what? No, yeah, because when I first see him in like the alleyway, for a split second, that's what I thought it was. Then we got close up. I'm like, is Michael Shannon got a kid? Because to me, he looks a lot like he's going to sell drugs to Seth Rogen and the Falcon.
And grow wings and fly away.
Yes, angels get their wings. But
it's kind of funny because that kid was also in Super 8. If you guys remember that J.J. Abrams movie.
Oh, was he?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
But back to the movie we are talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, overall, it's a good creepy movie. It gets a little loose at the end. I think they tried to put too much in one movie, where they could have just left it the supernatural part for this movie and entered into the cult aspect of it in a sequel.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But overall, I felt like it was a sufficiently creepy movie that had some good scares. It would have been better to have a little bit more kills in it, maybe. Like Jerry said, maybe have some other people that had been messing around with the whole urban legend.
Honestly, on that note, like if they would have just made us think, we saw from their perspective, look like they got killed by the empty man. Later on in the movie, we find out like, oh no, they fucking all did this themselves. I think that would have been pretty great. Like if they would have revealed that later, that it was them killing themselves and not the empty man.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I mean, they gave us just a herd of teenagers we could have seen get picked off. Which, don't get it wrong, the multi-person hanging on a bridge thing was a shocking scene, but like to add a body count would have definitely improved the early on building of what's going on. Could have been done well. I think that could have definitely improved it a little bit.
Absolutely.
Well,
so I guess let's go ahead and give our rating on it.
Yeah.
Wrap it up, Jerry. What would you rate this out of 5 screams?
Out of 5, I would say just because of like the way that it ended on such a huge note, and like a lot of the movie plays off of like the mystery and trying to find out what happens. That the rewatchability of it isn't like super high, so I think I'd at least give it a 3, just because of like some of the interesting facts in it, but like not really having that like rewatchability on it.
Yeah. Sean?
I'm with Jerry, actually. It's a 3. It's a middle of the road horror in a lot of aspects, but it is entertaining enough not to drop it below that. But like with the disjointed ending, it kind of like I had 3.5 when I wrote it, but I was really like breaking down. Yeah, 3 is a fair thing, just because it's not terrible, but like with the disjointedness kind of brings it down a little bit.
Yeah, I too graded this as a 3 for the same reasons. Early in this movie, midway through this movie, it was a solid 4.
Yeah, for sure.
And as we've stated, it kind of took a nosedive there at the movie. Again, I want to be clear: the movie doesn't really take a nosedive because the ending is good. Yeah. It just doesn't feel like it fits with the rest of the movie quite right. Yeah. So, so I'll rate it a 3 as well. You guys have anything else you want to add to it?
No, not necessarily. I think I got out everything I wanted to say about it.
Looking through my notes, another shout out though is disjointed as the cult stuff said. I actually really enjoyed the one scene that Stephen Root was in as the cult leader. Like between the speech, the creepiness of the atmosphere, and then that short discussion he had with our lead, it was good. He, like you said, he wasn't in it much, but like it stood out as another, like he's remembered as a stapler man. He's remembered as Bill Dauterive if you watched King of the Hill. But like he does pop up occasionally with these creepy ass roles, and I just gotta give an extra shout out to him for that.
It was good.
one more thing that I could have added. You know, I would have given it a 3.5 or 4 if they would have like brought Cullen Bunn on for a cameo or something like that. I thought that would have been pretty cool.
I was looking in the backgrounds of pictures and stuff like that, seeing if they had snuck him in, but I never did notice him.
Yeah, I'm really curious as to like how much he was involved on the movie and everything. I kind of follow him on social media a bit, and just kind of wonder, because that's how I even found out about it, is he like shared it on Twitter and everything. Yeah,
same.
So
so I would say if you should watch this movie. If you are into horror movies, you should watch this movie. It's sufficiently good. There are parts of it that you'll love. There's parts that you're not going to be super happy with. But if you find yourself enjoying parts of it, you should pick up the graphic novel for sure, and give that a read.
Oh, wholeheartedly agree with that. Like, I mean, just so much of like Cullen Bunn's stuff. Like, what was the other horror story that he did not too long ago, around the same time as Empty Man?
He did crap.
Nope, that wasn't it. It wasn't crap.
Harlan County. What? The county one.
Yeah, Harrow County.
Harrow County.
Yes.
Yeah, Caleb's going to kill me for forgetting that
one. we won't tell him, so as long as he doesn't listen to this.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. He's again, he's a damn good horror writer, damn good comic book writer, and like I didn't see anything really, like when I looked like the IMDb trivia. I don't think he had a ton of involvement outside of signing off on it, but yeah, you should definitely check out his works though if you enjoyed this, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Well, that's gonna do it then for us.
I think so. Jerry, tell everybody where else they can find you again on the internet.
So I was in the Southern Fried Geekery podcast that Craig is still a host of. I think right around the 90s or so. And then also on Yokai Delinquents with Sean, we release episodes every Monday. Other than that, just
yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Sounds great. Thank you for joining us, Jerry. We appreciate you.
My pleasure.
And, very much, man.
Yeah. Well, if you liked what you heard, we would love it if you would like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos as always. If you've seen this film, let us know what you thought about it. Are we being too harsh, or are we making some fair critiques? I think we're fair, but of course I do. Share the videos around. Thank y'all for listening, and we will catch y'all next time.
See you next week.
Later.